Well, good evening and welcome to Get Real with Rick Dancer. And tonight, this is a paid show by actually a friend of mine who is crazy enough to run for public office. Dwayne Boomer Wright is running for House District number 9, which is basically Coos Bay, Florence. You can't go any farther west than Florence and Coos Bay. And then he goes east to Mapleton and to Triangle Lake. So a lot of people in our viewing audience, this will be very appropriate for them. They will be voting on a new candidate. The seat is open, and Boomer is a Republican who's going to run for this seat. And I think this is his first time running for public office, although he's been mixed up in all kinds of crazy stuff over the years. Hey, Boomer, welcome to the show. And you guys, Boomer's campaign is paying for this show. So I just want to be really upfront about that. And if you live,
darn right, and he needs to be nice to me too, don't you?
yeah. So and I did it. I did fully disclosure. We are friends. I know Boomer for a long time. I have questioned his sanity for running for office.
That goes both ways, by the way.
Yeah, he did the same thing when I did. So Boomer, tell people kind of a little bit about your history and what you've done, so they can get familiar with you if they are not already familiar with you. Okay.
Okay, well, I was raised in Lorain, a small little place just west of Cottage Grove. My folks had a farm there with cows and chickens and pigs and sheep, and we raised hay and had a small orchard. So I'm a farm boy. Went to Crow High School, graduated with about 41 of my good friends, which I still keep in contact with. Went to college, paid my way through tuition by working at Weyerhaeuser and Roseboro Lumber Company in the Valley. So I know full well my father worked at Roseboro for years. Then I went, like I said, I got my education at several colleges, but finally ended up in Oregon College of Education, which is now Western, of course, and got a BS in elementary education. Shortly thereafter, I moved to Florence with my 2-week-old daughter and my wife, and taught to teach 3rd grade. After about 3 months, the principal walks into my classroom and says, Dwayne, my name is Gerald Dwayne Wright, and the only person that ever calls me that's my mother, and that's usually when I was in trouble. But anyway, he walks into my room and says, Dwayne, you're doing a wonderful job. We're going to give you a raise. And I thought, well, all right. He said, yeah, that's the good news. The bad news, we're firing the rest of the teachers in the building. I said, really? He goes, yeah, we just feel like we open all the classroom doors. You can teach the whole school from your room. And so the next morning, he sent the memo around him concerning the Boomer in room 32. And I've been Boomer ever since, and that became my coaching name, of course. And then from that, I was director of education. And 31 years later, I taught elementary school. I was a principal in middle school, primary school, and then eventually superintendent of schools in Mapleton. And then from there, went on to work at Sea Lion Caves. And I will say that herding sea lions is a lot the same as herding kindergartners. So I was experienced already.
And I want to make sure people heard you say herding, not hurting. He didn't hurt any sea lions. He herded them. So just so people will make sure you hear it. So I love my kindergartners. They're great. They're great people. So what made you decide to jump into the race as a Republican for House District number 9?
Well, I think as with a lot of people here in the district, we're just kind of fed up with what's happening in Salem with the imbalance that's there. We have a supermajority of one party, and they're just kind of ramming things down everybody's throat in the state. And it's time to elect people that are going to go up there and at least stand in the way of things that are trying to be placed through the legislature.
Because right now, Boomer, with the supermajority right now that we have, that means there's so many Democrats in the camp that there is no, they can't stop, Republicans can't stop anything, and no other party can stop anything because there's not enough power in there to do anything. So you've got one ideology running the entire state of Oregon.
Exactly. The only thing they can do is what the Republicans did before, and that was to walk out. And people think, well, they all walked out and because of cap and trade. Well, they did walk out on cap and trade, but the reason they walked out is they wanted to put it to the public. They wanted the vote on this. You know, we've been left out as a public. We, the people, have been left out of a lot of things that have gone through the legislature. It's time to put people like me back in there who will hopefully give people a voice instead of having somebody ram down our throats things that we don't want.
So talk to me a little bit about timber, because I know you grew up with timber. It's a, you know, I think some people think it's no longer valid in Oregon, but that's because they don't understand the state and where this comes from.
Exactly.
Talk to me about right now, if you were a legislator and we have this forest fire and all this land that's been destroyed, what would you be pushing for?
Well, again, Rick, we're talking about balance. There has to be a balance between protecting the animals, protecting the environment, and people. All of a sudden, we have this imbalance of making sure that for some reason we want to create Oregon as a animal preserve or a state park. Well, that's not going to work. People need jobs, schools need money, businesses need tourism dollars to come in to draw into that. What I would do is basically I want to be on a committee that looks at oversight for some of these agencies that I believe, like the employment agency for one, but for sure the forestry, and be able to look at their management practices. We need to have a balance in there and make sure that we have the money to be available for protection of our forest instead of letting it burn, because that's exactly what happens. Unfortunately, I understand people don't like roads into the forest, but how do we get into the forest to stop fires if we don't have roads? How do we have breaks in the forest so they have a chance to stop the fire if we don't log and have those breaks? So there has to be, just like in the legislature, Rick, we need a balance of the animals, the forest with people.
Because I know you, so you're kind of like a guy who's not afraid of the C word, compromise. We need to, I think the whole way that the legislature is designed is supposed to work is you got this idea, and then you argue and argue, you bring them together and you come up with something that maybe everybody doesn't love, but it's something that we can all work towards.
Exactly. That's how America has worked for hundreds of years, and that people actually sit down and talk. And yeah, you can get mad and you can stomp off and all those kinds of things, and really care about what you're saying. But in the end, if you actually want something to happen, you've got to sit down and work with one another. You have to respect one another. You have to listen to one another, and be open. You can't, seems like we're so divisive anymore in our thoughts that there's only one way to do it. It's my way or the highway. No, the highway have branches. They go different directions, and we just all have to be on that highway together, and so we can make decisions together out of respect.
Cap and trade.
Terrible. Terrible. It's just a fundraising project for the state. Look at California. It doesn't work in California. You got dollar a gallon higher taxes on fuel. I mean, prices on food is skyrocketing, and they're burning up. Gee whiz, because they don't take care of their forests. It's a terrible, terrible thing. I have several nights when I just things rolling in my head, and so I went to the Department of Environmental Quality website, and I was looking at how much money they spend, which like $28 million or whatever it is. It's huge, and part of it talked about the particulates in Portland and Salem, and how they've declined because of the DEA regulations and policies. And it talked about the rural area and saying that they've remained low. Well, if that's true, and obviously they wouldn't say it if it wasn't, then we're slowly getting where we need to be. And I think the free enterprise system will get us where we need to be with carbon. And I think we just need to continue doing what we're doing instead of punishing businesses that are already in trouble because of the COVID crisis.
So let's talk about something that shows kind of what we're talking about here. Shutter Creek was in the news a couple of months ago when there was talk of shutting it down, and also Lakeview, Oregon, was in the same boat with their prison. But they have a couple of years to go before that was going to happen. You guys were scheduled to have this to happen soon, and it got put off. Kind of explain. We've got Mike. Mike, say your last name for me.
Castaldo.
And Mike works at Shutter Creek. Mike, tell people what you do there.
So so first of all, I'm not speaking on behalf of the Department of Oregon Corrections. And I'm speaking for myself, an employee at Shutter Creek. And I feel like I speak on behalf of the staff up there. I've been up there for 14 years now. I'm recently promoted to correctional sergeant up there. I am the union president. So I kind of represent the people, try to keep them safe. And
how many people do you have employed up there?
About 91 right now.
So close to 100 people, and those are family wage jobs.
Oh yes, very much. Family wage, probably one of the, it's a good wage for Coos County for sure.
And so you were taken, kind of explain how you were taken off the list, but the governor has said that she still wants to close the place down. Is that right?
As far as I know, yes. So, and it's hard because we have there's a bunch of legislative people. There's a bunch of Congress people. So we had to go in and testify, I guess, with the legislature to kind of keep us open. And we had a huge support. Boomer was one of our biggest supporters. He came up to the prison. We just do a lot in this community that I think a lot of people don't know about with our community projects.
Right. It's not just like a prison where you're putting people. There's actually all these different programs, training dogs for PTSD. I mean, a ton of things you do.
Tons of programs. So we're actually a release facility. So the guys at the facility are 4 years or less to getting released. So we release to Coos, Lane, Curry, Jackson, Josephine, Douglas, all these neighboring counties. We prepare these, and we call them adults in custody now as a new nomenclature, not inmates. But we prepare these AICs for getting out in the community. So they're 93% of the AICs in custody right now in Oregon are going to be released. And that's what a lot of people don't realize is they're going to be our neighbors. I see these guys all the time in the community. So preparing them, giving them meaningful jobs, because we do work crews, we do community projects, we do volunteer work. We have the JLAD, the Joys of Assisted Living Dogs for PTSD. We have numerous programs, and we have 45 different contracts with the state or in our facility that we work with different counties and communities. 45 contracts.
So Boomer, your concern as someone running for the legislature is this is, you feel like this is still on the target.
Well, yeah, I think with the governor that we have, I think everything that she doesn't like in particular, or she has other projects that she thinks are more important, she's going to do whatever she thinks is best for her, as far as I'm concerned. I think Mike is being extremely modest, simply because I think he represents quite an amazing group of people there at Shutter Creek. I went there with the concept that, like you did, Rick, was that this is a security prison and they lock them up and they never let them out, and it's not. It's that term rehabilitation fits very well with Shutter Creek. These people, I met several of the inmates, particularly ones that were training the dogs, and wow, what amazing young people who admitted that they'd made a mistake and they were ready to get out and be something special to society, to pay society back. And Shutter Creek gives them the skills. They may not have graduated. They're allowed to take GEDs. If they want a skill, whether it's carpentry, electrical work, or training dogs, they have the opportunity to do that, so that when they get out in society, they have something that they can work with to make sure that they're a productive citizen. Shutter Creek is a remarkable facility, and I'll fight like hell to preserve it.
And when I did this before with your other folks, when it was back when it was going to be cut, I don't think people understand when you're taking 100 jobs like that from a place like Coos Bay. I lived there. That was my first TV job. And those kind of paying jobs, that's a huge dent in the economy down there.
$6 million.
Yeah.
$6 million to that community of Lakeside. They get $18,000 a month from Shutter Creek for their water and their sewage facilities.
That's right.
And they don't even have a tax base.
That's just Lakeside. That's one city.
Yeah.
We live in
They don't
Lakeside.
even have a tax base in Lakeside. Without it, they go. I mean, I don't know what would happen. I think they go under. I mean, what else can they do?
So, Mike, how important is it to have people in Salem that are listening to you guys?
That's extremely important. Extremely important. And I didn't even touch on all the stuff that we do, like the Holiday Farm Fire. I'm sure you're aware, up in McKenzie River. I came from that fire. I spent 2 weeks up there with a 10-man crew with another officer. And that's what we do. We work closely with the Oregon Department of Forestry. We work closely with CFPA. They took the fire we just had in Bandon. My guys were cutting handline for the last 5 weeks, fighting that fire, and the one in Coquille and the one in Lakeside. My inmate crews did that because we don't have, CFPA does not have enough manpower, but we do. We have 300 men up there, and most of them are able-bodied and can fight those fires, and most of them are trained wildland firefighters. We provide that assistance to these local counties, and that's what a lot of people don't realize. We're not just a prison. We provide services, and those services go well beyond what people can even imagine.
Mike, thank you so much for coming on and talking. And we appreciate it. And Boomer, I want to come back. Mike. I'm going to come back to you.
Thank you, Boomer. Thank you.
So, Boomer, what else do you do to distinguish yourself from the competition, your opponent?
Well, first off, I've lived on the coast for almost 50 years. I know the coast. I've lived the coast, raised my family here. I love the coast and its people. I'm a boots on the ground guy, as you well know, Rick. I'm not a guy that sits around. If I see something that needs to be done, particularly when I was in education with kids, if it involved kids, I was going to do. I've coached softball, I've coached football, I've coached baseball, I've coached wrestling, whatever the kids wanted or needed, I was ready to do that. And I'll do the same thing for the people on the coast in District 9, whether it's helping Mike and the people at Shutter Creek or helping Mark Matichak at North Bend Lanes. I'm sorry he's not on here. Must have not been able to get online. The governor had, of course, when she did some COVID closures, get this in the bowling alleys, they could open their bar, but they couldn't open their lanes. So it was very difficult for the bowling hours to make it. We worked together with Mark Matichak, the owner, and did something that was called a buy cut. And what we did was we advertised it and brought people in to buy lanes ahead of time so that he could continue to operate and pay his people. I also supported David Grover at the Cozy Kitchen. He opened early, and they threatened to fine him for doing so. And I called him and I said, David, what's going on? And he said, look, Boomer, we have to open. If I don't open, I lose my business. And he said, on top of that, my employees have not received, in the last 9 weeks, they have not received any unemployment checks. They don't have money for food. They don't have money to pay their bills. They don't have money for anything. I have to open for my people. And I said, well, whatever I can do to help, that's for sure. And then right now I'm working with the Mapleton group for their water problem. They had some filtration system problems. So fortunately, I've had some great support from other Republican legislators and basically the water board and helping Mapleton hopefully get they don't have to boil their water much longer. So we're working with that too. So as you see, I'm a boots on the ground guy. I like to be involved with people, and if I can help, that's my job.
So I even saw that some guy, the former sheriff of Lane County, Bob McManus. I said, where did I didn't even know he was still. Where'd you find? I love Bob. He and I were good friends. I don't know where you found him, but he was hanging out somewhere. Tell me also, the Bay Area Chamber of Commerce is on your support list. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, they're a great group of people down there. I got a kind of a head start in the campaign over the COVID virus. I got started in January, and so I got a good month and a half to meet people down in Coos Bay and work with businesses and meet them and find out what the issues are. So that helped me a lot in becoming well known down there. Now we have about 600 signs up and down the coast, and and they're everywhere. I was accused of being worse than the COVID virus the other day. This Boomer guy, he's got signs everywhere. He's on TV. He's on radio. He's got mail coming in. He's digitally. Who is this guy? He's worse than COVID.
Boomer, look what you could have done with your name, Boomer. You know, I wanted to make my signs to say really big. It would say "Go Go" and then a tiny Rick and then Dancer. Just have Go Dancer.
Go Dancer. That's a good one.
I'd probably be the governor. People just go, I'm going to vote for the Go Dancer. I don't care.
I wish you were the governor. I wish you were the governor.
So tell me what you've done. Andrew Brainard is on here with the tribe, and he's saying you're doing a lot for veterans in the area.
I was fortunate to meet some wonderful veterans from the Coos Bay area right away and started listening to them. And they began to tell me, in particular, there was some transportation problems. And they were having a difficult time getting to Roseburg if they needed to, and then on to Portland for sure. So unbeknownst to me, about 30 minutes before the deadline, I was informed that I could propose legislation for 2021 through another representative. And so I did that. So I proposed some legislation that would bring more funding to transportation for our vets down in the Coos Bay area. I also asked for funding for a one-stop shop for veterans for all the facilities and opportunities that they have, either through the state or private things, so that if they need something, they can just go to one site and find it. I was encouraged by one of the people in Coos Bay to go ahead and maybe have a facility to do that. So we'll look into that as we go forward, as I end up in Salem. But at least right now, those are the two things that I'm working with right now.
So being that you were a teacher and a principal and a superintendent, how is that going to help you in terms of education? Is a huge issue for a lot of people in any party. It doesn't matter what party you're in.
Well, we need to get our kids back to school. And I think one of the things that has occurred, which I think is a good thing, if COVID ever has a good thing to happen, I think people were forced to take a really good look at what our kids are being taught. And there's a lot of concern about that. Our teachers are doing a heck of a job, but unfortunately, they're being forced to teach things that aren't necessarily in the best interest of our kids. I think we need to quit arguing about what's best for kids and really do what's best for kids. I don't care whether it's public school, private schools, online, homeschooling. It doesn't matter. Whatever's in the best interest of the kids. Let's quit arguing about it and make sure we do it.
Has that gotten lost?
Well, the school districts, interestingly enough, have found out that about 30% of their students are not going to return. So that tells you something right there that and also we need to look at 1/4 of our students don't graduate. They leave us from freshman to senior year. I was subbing at it's Florence right before Christmas. They'd asked me to come in and do some teaching of writing to the kids, and I said I'd love to do it, and because I write and sell children's books, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, how about that? Yeah, I published 4 books so far and thoroughly enjoyed it and actually read them during the COVID thing when it first got started to kids over Facebook. But anyway, I asked the kids to write and tell me what they thought was wrong, why the kids aren't graduating. And they said, because we don't have, well, first off, not everybody needs to go to college.
Right.
2, we don't have the opportunities to experience other things beside the idea of going to college. And so, to a certain extent, that's why we don't have, we have very few carpenters and electricians and plumbers and, auto mechanics and those kinds of things, because for some reason we've done away with that. And we need to get back to kids having options, doing job shadows and those kinds of things, so that we can keep our kids close and we can give them alternatives besides just going to college.
Hasn't COVID also taught us, Boomer, that what the essential jobs are? Because I don't see a lot of, I don't know that I would be on that list, but it's tradespeople. We need plumbers, electricians. We need people who are working, journeyman kind of jobs. And those have always been, in the last 30 or 40 years, it's kind of been, everybody's got to go to college. And I think we're learning that education system is going to change, and the unions and people like that are going to have to be open to the fact that learning is going to look different now. And it's not a Democrat or a Republican issue. This is what COVID has shown us as the education of the future. And
that's right.
When they first started having essential workers, and I'm looking going, I won't mention them here because I'll get myself and you in trouble. But I'm looking, all the important jobs that we think those are important jobs, they're not on that list. It's the stuff that really, when push comes to shove, that's the important job. And your friends at Shutter Creek are some of those people that are on that list, because we need people watching them, and training and bringing these people back into our culture.
You bet. The other thing we've learned, Rick, is that you don't have to be in a 35-story building to be competitive and productive.
Right.
There's something that Oregon has that a few other states have, but of course I'm partial to the coast in Oregon, and that's livability. We have an amazing place to live with all kinds of opportunities, and I think this is our chance to start bringing people to Oregon, young people. The coast has lost its young people because families moved away to find jobs. We need to bring their natural resource back, business back in full fledged, have a balance in the forest, and make sure that we have then the money for infrastructure building, affordable housing, those kinds of things that people then can come in. Right now, we are experiencing fiber optics coming to this community and up and down the coast, and that's going to be wonderful. So we can have somebody that's from New York and they're tired of living in that environment, want to come to Oregon and have a green business for us, and have internet that they can be productive all over the world and selling their product or whatever. I think we really have a big opportunity here, and I just hope that we can take that opportunity and use it.
So, Boomer, the other thing that I think is kind of interesting too is people, because I lived 3 years on the coast, and people in the valley, we don't really understand that coastal mentality, and we've almost created on the Oregon coast. I'm trust me, I have a business that depends on tourism, but retirement and tourism is not everything that goes on there. There's families. Obviously, Mike is a younger guy. Mike, you can smile because I said that. But you got families and people, especially like you were saying, is now with the industry and the you guys getting fiber optic, anybody can live there and would probably choose to. But we also, as a state, have to be prepared to make that happen, and also not just say it can happen, but provide the infrastructure so that it will happen.
Yeah, Oregon has become extremely unfriendly to business in general, and that's the key. Lots of people think we need to have these big projects that come into Oregon. We really don't. We need to start small with the businesses, make they're supported. Then they'll be successful. They'll hire more people, and they'll grow and provide more money for the state as far as revenue is concerned, and then that increases our ability for transportation and roads and bridges and all those things. It all starts with small businesses and making sure we take good care of them.
Hey, Boomer, what do you love about Mapleton and Florence and Coos Bay and that your section of the Oregon coast? What I don't think also a lot of people like in Portland, or even I think Eugene does, but Portland doesn't understand. Coos Bay, North Bend is the largest city on the Oregon coast. It's not a beach town.
No.
And what do you personally just love about the South Coast? Your section of the South Coast.
That's easy. The people. They're amazing. They're amazing. Resilient, hardworking people that care about the coast. They care about their cities. That they're willing to work hard to do everything they can to preserve the livability of where they are. I think all Oregonians, but especially those on the coast, are environmentalists at heart. We care about the area we live in, and we want to make sure that we maintain that livability. And they're just amazing people. If nothing else happens in this election, one of the things that I have been blessed with is that I've met such wonderful people that I would not normally have met otherwise. And so I'm very thankful for that. And yes, I want to be in Salem and I want to represent them, but the reason I live here is because of the people.
So what's the first thing you're going to do if you win? I will just say, because you're paying for this, when you win, right?
Exactly. When I win, what's the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go home. I'm going to have a probably a tall, cool one, and I'm going to sleep for about 3 days.
So are you going to have a gavel that says Boomer? I think you ought to have like a signature when you're done with whatever it is you do. And let's say you're like the House Speaker one day, and you're going to have this gavel, and it's going to be this boom in the state capitol, dropping it in there.
I don't need that, Rick. I have a voice that you could hear for miles.
Yeah, we know. When Boomer worked at the Sea Lion Caves, the sea lions had competition.
Isn't that the truth? What's amazing too, because my wife never has to worry about where I am in a store. She can just hear me laughing and she knows where I'm at.
Okay, real quick before we go, tell them you've been married she's put up, well, let me put it this way. She's put up with
27 years.
That's a long time. Really?
I know. I can't believe she's put up with me for that long. She's a wonderful woman.
You live in the same house?
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
How many kids? How many kids you have?
Well, we have 4 kids and 7 grandkids, and you can never have too many grandkids. That's for sure.
Yeah. See, I don't have those yet. My kids are just, it's like that thing where it's like, okay, the grandpuppy's fine, but I want something that can actually, talk to me.
Yeah, they're wonderful. Unfortunately, most of mine live a ways away, and I don't get to see them very often. But I sure miss them. But hey, they're wonderful. Like I said, you can never have too many.
Anything you want to throw out as your parting thought?
Well, I will say one particular thing. I don't know if you're aware of it, but in 1986, my first wife Andrea was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor. After a challenging 5 years, I lost her, and God took her home. During that time, an amazing group of people surrounded me with love and compassion and support for my daughter and my son and I. Rick, I know I can never pay that back. They helped me and my family get through that. But you know what? I'd like to try. I really would like to represent this coast in the manner that I was supported after my wife passed away.
What? It's kind of a weird question, but I ask really weird questions. What do you think she would be thinking of all this? Like,
she'd think I was crazy.
Well, she already knew that.
She would be extremely supportive of, because she always was, of everything that I did. Because as a couple, you work together toward a goal, and even though initially it was my goal, my first wife would have been on board with it after we talked and we prayed about it, and the same thing for Susan and I now. We spent a whole weekend praying about it, called the kids and talked to them and asked them, what do you think about it? There could be some slings and arrows coming your way, and they said, no, Dad, we're behind you. You go for it. And so, after much prayer and I think, to be very honest, I think God wants me here. I've never felt more comfortable doing something in my life than I'm doing right now. And I'm just looking forward to being in Salem and hopefully making a difference for the coast.
When my wife and I decided we were going to run for Secretary of State, we made that decision in Florence, Oregon. We stayed the weekend at the coast, and we went down there and said, that's my most peaceful place is the Oregon coast. And we went down there, and that's where she looked at me and she says, if you want to do this, I'll support you. But I'm not going to go to everything. I'm not going to be a campaign wife. I'll go to the ones that I absolutely have to, but you're running, not me.
Yep. Susan said the same thing.
That's my wife.
Yeah, exactly the same thing. It's grueling, but anyway, it's been remarkable. I've enjoyed every minute.
Tom Hunt on here says, if Boomer wins, when Boomer wins, tell him I'll buy him his first tall, cool one. Just tell me where and when.
Deal.
Well, Tom, it's going to have to be in Triangle Lake, Mapleton, Florence, Coos Bay, North Bend, Lakeside. You know, I mean, you're going to have to, but those are different days, not one time.
I don't want to be an alcoholic before I get to say that, Rick. Come on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for trusting me to do this interview, and we appreciate it. And Boomer, I like you. You're a good guy. And like I said, and Mike, thank you in the wings for all you guys do down there. I have so many friends here. Hold on. I have so many friends right now who are who they are because of the work that you guys did at Shutter Creek. They're all graduates of Shutter Creek, and
that's good.
And
Thank you.
They're amazing people, and what you guys did for them it made it so that I could meet them, and now they're my friends. Right. And I was just talking about them earlier today, saying, you guys, if you knew some of my friends, their history, you guys looking at me funny. Long Timber Brewing. Oh, that's where you're going, I guess. Oh, now everybody's coming on. Awesome, man. Can't wait until he's elected. Boomer, so what you can do, Boomer, is go in here, and if anybody asks you a question after this, you can just go in there and answer it right in the comment section, okay? And same with you, Mike. If people are asking about Shutter Creek, you can go in there and do that. And you guys, take this on your page and share it. I'm going to say a couple of words. You guys, I'm going to let you go. Thank you again, okay?
Thanks, Rick. Thanks,
You're
Boomer.
welcome.
Thanks, Mike.
So you guys, that's, again, Boomer Wright running for House District number 9. That's Coos Bay, North Bend, Lakeside, Florence, Dune City, Yachats. It's also Triangle Lake and Mapleton and any other little community in between there. You know, he's your Republican candidate. And again, this was a paid ad by his campaign. So everybody knows, and it's all up front. But if anybody else wants to come on here, we always are willing to let people talk because we think you should know who you're electing into office. And I think that gave you a real good flavor for Boomer. And yes, I have a soft spot for the guy. I've known him too long. And besides, he talks louder than I do. All right. You guys have a great night. And we will be back tomorrow. Oh, we are checking in tomorrow with New Leaf Hyperbaric and Massage and Wellness. That's their new name. And we're going to go in there, and Matt's going to be in the tank, and he's going to tell you about a special that's coming up. And so, yeah, if you guys want to get tanked, not that way. If you want to get tanked in the hyperbaric chamber, hey, Boomer, when you win, come up and we'll get you a hyperbaric treatment. It'll give you a lot of hot air, and you'll love it. Okay. All right. See you guys later. Have a good night.